It's kind of okay. It looks like we live, so we'll just wait for everyone. See, now people are actually commenting about me taking a shit and now having to take a shit before. And no, dude, this is when we take a shit during the show when everyone's listening. We were just catching up. That's why we were a bit late.
Oh yeah, it does look like we're live. Yeah,
We're
I
live.
appear to be frozen. Oh no. Okay.
No, we're good. So we broadcasting on both Twitter and on YouTube. You can see the. Can you see the views on the top left of your screen? No.
No, I
Yeah.
can't.
Okay.
I do see that there's people in the YouTube chat or something.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we're doing it a bit different. Grant is in the UK at the moment. He's gone to see his folks, and I think he's sorting out visas and everything. And I thought, let me just ask Messi to come on, and he said cool, and we've kind of been chatting about it for a while. I am very fortunate to have spent quite a lot of time with Messi over the last few months, and kind of like getting insight into the mayhem that is the market at the moment. And it's really good to have you on, sir. Welcome. And the last time we chatted was on the hero stream.
Yeah, it was a good stream.
That was a good one. We've got Popovix here. He said hi.
Yeah, what's up, Coach?
Yeah, Coach is here. So, and then also we got a couple of the freaks. Dude, welcome. It's fantastic to see you. Always.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Good to be in Shitcoin Church again. Of course, Blockmates guys have been leading the Shitcoin Church charge and kind of taking the mantle. Very honored for them to carry on the legacy. I can't imagine a better group of guys that do it. Yeah, it's good to be back, boys. Of course, the markets are a lot of fun right now. Everybody is apparently making millions of dollars on meme coins, except for me.
Except for me.
Yeah, I think I'm like the meme coin like Scrooge, I would say, or I'm like cursed. Any meme coin I feel like I ever touch just goes to fucking zero. With haste, I don't get it, and it's because I'm not like in the trenches anymore. I really am just trying to take a more passive approach, than in the past. Limit my risk exposure, or at least the perceived risk exposure. Try to nail rotations. If you can't play memes, you're mid curve from YouTube. Maybe, bro. I don't know. Like mid curving has always worked out pretty well for me. I like to beat my own drummer is something I'm really passionate about. I'm very stubborn. If it's somebody else's call, I'm probably not going to buy it because I like to have my own original ideas. I like to do my own thing. But yeah, everything's been going really good. And I've got some risk on, if you guys were listening to the Hero Lab stream, we did, when was that, Jedi? A few months ago, January?
It was 2 months ago. There were some interesting calls, and I want to actually reflect on those because I know that you exited one of the positions as well.
Yeah, we had some good calls, and basically my whole thesis was that, and at that point in time, there was this like consensus meta. I think they were calling it the incel trade. If you weren't in INJ, TIA, and Say, you were not going to make it. That was the retirement portfolio, and of course, this is further back in the market cycle, right? And I don't think people kind of realized, what was coming next at that point. Maybe some people did, but my whole thesis was basically that just like, okay, in these kind of market conditions and knowing what's coming, everything is going to pump. So I really just wanted to focus on projects that I don't have to sweat about. Like you guys can be in the meme coin trenches all day. That's just not for me. And it doesn't mean that I'm better than you or you're better than me. I'm just not like making sausage anymore. We were talking earlier, like being in the trenches is somewhere I've been, somewhere I've spent a lot of time in. You know what I'm talking about. You're in Solana manlets, AVAX, Audis, something like that. Like you're in the trenches, right? that's where the sausage is made. Like, you are getting like ground floor perspective into the good, bad, and the ugly in the industry. And it's a lot of stress, and it requires a lot of time. You can make your fortune there, or lose your fortune, but it does require your full attention, and it requires you to be on the hook. I'm a dad. I'm an old guy now. Like, I don't have time for that shit. So, my whole thesis was I need to get places with really good charts and solid fundamentals that I can punt reasonable size on, and not have that, holy fuck, am I going to get rugged thought, passing through the back of my mind. And of course, last cycle, I kind of had my come up in the trenches of DeFi summer. That was trench work. And I think it's very comparable to what's happening on Sol right now. But the thing is in DeFi summer, like, is just shit. You got fucking rug. There's shit coins. There's tendies. I've always been an aggressive rotator, so I always reduce my risk that way. But I think there's nothing wrong with just looking for some solid fundamental projects, especially in an environment when everything's going to pump, and really trying to focus. And especially, this is important for me, for somebody that doesn't have this 200,000 follower platform I used to. I don't have a built-in marketing engine for my bags anymore. So it really kind of made me have to rethink what I entered. I couldn't be the guy that brought attention that way anymore. So, my thinking is like, what kinds of things can I allocate to that people are sleeping on, that still have these bottomed out looking charts, that still have, bear market discounts in what's becoming a raging bull market. What are these projects I can allocate to that at some point will warrant attention? Because that's really what this is all about, when it's all said and done. You can be in the best project in the world, and if there's no attention on that project, your bag is not going to go up, right? And that's why memes, of course, have been so successful. Is it's just pure raw, unadulterated attention. That's all it is. So, I allocated in solid fundamentals. I bought Aleph, I bought Dusk, I bought Cartesi. People were like, "You're buying these, boomer bags," and that may be true. And that's not an insult. To me, they may think it is, but I don't care. I kind of am a crypto boomer at this point, and I'm happy to be in these things that, I believe are going to go up, given time, because there's something that, like, the most important quality in crypto, especially when you're fundamental investing versus trench work, meme coins, fast money, fast life, is having a really high degree of patience and allowing things to play out. So, when I allocated into Dusk, Dusk was, around 15 cents at the time, and people were saying that was retarded. There were comments that were made in the last stream that said, "That's retarded. You're a fucking idiot." I exited Dusk a couple of days ago, and look, I'm not saying, like, when I exit something, I don't try to sell tops or buy bottoms. I try to sell expensive and buy cheap. And one thing I've learned, I guess, through the years is that, when you have a bag that is going absolutely vertical, and, because the RWA sector obviously got hit hard because Larry Fink was talking about tokenization on mainstream media, which is a pretty fucking big deal, right? When you have a bag that's absolutely vertical, and when other people in the Telegram are celebrating and things like that, like, those are the kind of signals to me that I need to be aggressively exiting my position, while everybody else is having this moment of euphoria and the circle jerk, because you may be that guy that put $700 into WIF and turned it into $20 million. And if you are, like, props to you, because people think that that's just luck, but it's really not. You might have been lucky initially, but, you were either retarded enough or, had the balls enough to continue to believe, continue to have conviction, and to continue to hold, until you are this multimillionaire. And if you've made it that way, congratulations. But I think people that make it that way are, I think that's like kind of blown out of proportion, you know, and I think that that's over glorified because there's actually very, very few people who do that or will ever do that. And there, even like if you're listening to this right now, the actual probability of you being that guy is incredibly low. You know, people are so addicted to fast money, it leads a lot of people to ruin. And I always say, you know, people always try to make it tomorrow. When, you know, this cycle probably has another year or two left in it. You know, we, in the grand scheme of things, we could be very early, and making it in 1 year or 2 years is still very, very fast money. I mean, you look at what the rest of the world is doing. You look at people saving up their entire lives in 401ks, you know, just to maybe have enough to cover their retirement and stuff. You know, you're still way ahead of the game there. So, you know, I am an aggressive rotator because compounding is incredibly powerful, you know. And while I sold most of my desk between, I sold it the entire way up, but I liquidated the rest of the position, which is the, you know, majority of the position between 57 cents and 65 cents. And the reason, you know, reasoning behind that, although I still think on a market cap basis, Dusk is cheap. And I still think that it's very possible, and, you know, if not plausible, that this thing will be $1 billion cap in the next year. That was a 4x on my money, and on a rather large sum of money too. So, you know, I really wanted to just take that opportunity to take that money off the table and start looking for new things that people, you know, really haven't diverted their attention to yet. You know, I bought more Cartesi. You know, oh, it's a boomer bag or whatever. Like, I don't care. It's got an awesome chart, it's an awesome product, and you got the TIA founder himself shilling it. Obviously, people don't put that much weight on him anymore, you know, because it's all about attention, and TIA doesn't have as much attention anymore, you know. But at some point, I believe that a significant, you know, amount of attention will focus on that bag, and that's why I hold it. And here's the thing: I might be right, I might be wrong, but a great chart plus a great product plus a great narrative usually ends up to a great result. And the thing is, you know, while I do think something like Cartesi could go to billions cap, really the only thing that I'm concerned about is, can this give me X's? Because you know, once again, you can be that guy that turns $700 into 20 million on WIF. You know, maybe that's your destiny. You know, that's your fate. But you're probably not going to be that guy, right? So, you know, what the kind of guy that anybody can be with a higher probability, you know, to put themselves in a better position, is the guy that says, you know, I'm up 3x on this. I put 10K into this. I'm at 3x. I got 30K now. I'm going to take that 10K out, you know, and I'm going to punt that 10K in a new opportunity. And I'm going to keep that 20K in the bag, you know, bang, it goes up another X. So, you know, I'm going to pull 10 more K out, and I'm going to spawn another opportunity for myself. When you build up these kind of foundational, you know, bags in your portfolio, you know, you have 5 or 6 different things, maybe in different narrative baskets. You know, when these things start catching attention, you can start, you know, taking this money out on X's, spawning new positions that, you know, haven't got attention yet, but that you believe will get shilled, that you believe will have attention at some point. And you can just continue to do this and compound that money. And I've actually done this, you know, for the past 3 or 4 months, and I've managed to, I think, 4x my entire portfolio, which is really nice. And, you know, you may have outperformed me, but at the same time, like, you know, I have to deal with liquidity constraints, you know, sizing concerns and things like that as well. You know, the only person, and everybody I think really needs to think about this, because your reality becomes just like really distorted on crypto Twitter. You know, when you're seeing these guys that, you know, I turned $1,000 into $1 million last week. And it's really easy to look at yourself and say, what the fuck is wrong with me? You know, like, why am I not doing that? But at the end of the day, the only person you're truly competing against is yourself. And you need to perform in a way that puts yourself in a better position versus where you were, and be happy with that. because you have time. And just a little bit of patience, and a little bit of risk management goes a long way. This is a tale as old as time, right? But the fastest money made is also the fastest money lost. And this is for a lot of reasons. People start believing themselves to be more talented or skilled than they actually are. People start believing themselves to be some kind of genius. And you see this a lot, I think, in the meme coin arena, where, people will run up $1,000 into $1 million, and they continue trying to play the game like they were with $1,000. But the thing is when you get to these higher portfolio levels, the game does change and strategy does change. You have to think differently. You have to act differently. You have to manage that downside. A lot of these meme guys already are kind of learning the hard way, and that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that or nothing to be ashamed of. I think it's actually a really good lesson to learn, and you need to learn it at some point. It's only natural to learn it. But yeah, I mean, that's basically just kind of like my thoughts on how I operate, and my mentality. I am keeping a little cash on hand right now, just because, paying attention to like total 2 and total 3. I think what's up next, of course, is impossible to know, right? I'm not a fortune teller. Anybody that tells you, they know for certain what's coming next is just a grifter, essentially. We do know, we can say that, like, looking at a crystal ball a year out from now, I have no doubt that, we're everybody here, if you play your cards right, and even if you play your cards wrong a lot and right some, is probably going to be in a better position than they are now. But managing your downside is incredibly important, and especially if you've made a lot of money over the past 4 months, because let's be honest, a lot of people have made a lot of money. I think at this phase in the cycle, it would be really intelligent to have a little bit of cash on hand. And that's not a bearish perspective. It's more of a perspective of having optionality. Because when I say a little bit of cash on hand, for me right now, I'm like 25% cash. That doesn't mean I'm bearish. If anything, that means I'm very bullish, right? Because I still have 75% exposure to the market. But if we did get, some kind of alt nuke or something here, coming into tax season, when people are starting to hear from their accountants and they're saying, buddy, you owe $500K for what you did in 2013, people start saying, oh, fuck, and those kinds of things can cascade really quickly. And also just the altcoin market cap in general is just in a pretty good spot to pull back. So I'm very bullish in my core positions. And one thing that's very important this cycle, and a guy I like a lot, Pull2 Poly, made a tweet about this a day or two ago, was that people who under rotate this cycle are going to be aggressively punished, which is something that I really agree with, because you haven't seen an alt season, right? But what you have seen is outlier performers, and people that have allocated to outlier performers, have done really well. Of course, the Soul Meme Coin Mania is there's a lot of parallels between that and DeFi Summer. One of the most interesting things about Soul Meme Coin Mania, to me at least, is that, with DeFi Summer, you had this kind of generation of wealth that went into the hands of people that were interested in the technology, people that ended up funding public goods that funded further research into DeFi. Whereas, with Solana Meme Coin Mania, the lion's share of the money, of course, we've seen that VCs have been dipping their dicks in Sol meme coins, which is kind of disturbing and hilarious at the same time. But I think a lot of the money has gone to the frogs and gone to the left curve and gone to the retards and to the trenches. So, whereas DeFi Summer kind of spawned, all of this innovation and growth in the sector, I think it's going to be really interesting to watch, what happens as a byproduct of this wealth in meme coins. And really, I have kind of like two thoughts about this. One, a lot of times when people hit it big on Vapor, their first thought is, I have a lot of money now and I need to kind of be more responsible about this. So I am going to start allocating to fundamentals and to tech and things like that. Whereas, of course, you've got the other side of that where these people are like, I need to keep fucking gambling because, I'm a genius. I turned $1,000 into $1 million. Now I'm going to turn $1 million into 100 million, doing the same thing, I was going to do. So, I do think that there's going to be a bit of both of this, and of course, I think that we've seen kind of the top of meme coin mania, but, you still do have these outlier performers. You've got these memes like Joe Biden and Solana that are doing really, really well, just because it's funny and it's got this organic movement and everybody likes laughing at Joe Biden. So it's kind of created this movement, which is really interesting to watch. But, if you look at the intensity of what's going on over there now versus, let's say, a week before Boom happened, it's not even close to being the same. So, for me, it's like, I think, and this is something that happened at the end of DeFi summer, I think a Bitcoin dominance melt up is coming. People get complacent. People forget about King Bitcoin. Of course, King Bitcoin has the extra attention on it right now because of these enormous flows into the asset from retail and institutions. And these flows are not really even at the peak of what they could be. You had Larry Fink on TV just a few days ago saying that, this is the fastest growing, the BlackRock IBET ETF is the fastest growing ETF in history out of any ETF ever, which is incredible to see. And those kinds of like statements, and not just the statements, like the actual, the facts, right? They make waves in finance. People are paying attention to this. And I think that there is this insatiable desire to have some kind of allocation. Fidelity, maybe a month ago, was recommending clients, Fidelity, $3 to $4 trillion assets under management, one of the largest asset managers in the world, is recommending clients 1% to 3% portfolio exposure to Bitcoin ETF, which is just, it's incredible to see. So, when a Bitcoin dominance melt up can happen in one of two ways. And I hope it happens the first way I'm about to talk about. And this is what happened after DeFi summer. Bitcoin went up so aggressively, and we're right at ATH, right? We're on the precipice of a lot of mainstream media attention. The average normoid, looks at the Bitcoin or really any chart. You look at the capo, of course it's backtracked, but I'm not going to buy until it's an all-time high. And that's my trigger for entry. That's like when this thing is going to go up, when it makes a new all-time high. I'm going to hop on and I'm going to ride that momentum. And, we're like at this inflection point where that could possibly happen, and very soon too, right? So all of a sudden you see Bitcoin aggressively moving up when other things aren't. What happens as a result of that is it sucks the liquidity out of everything else. So you might see altcoins, at the end of DeFi summer, you actually saw these DeFi protocols, going down while Bitcoin was going up, which was incredibly painful. And I see a potential scenario for something like that to happen to the altcoin sector, and especially these outlier outperformers. Like, look at Fetch AI. That thing is ridiculously vertical, and as far as I know, it's just total vapor. Like, we've got a project that's been around, for years and years and years and years, and really never did anything or had a use case, but it has AI in the ticker, or in the name, and so it's become, this consensus, like, god tier allocation. You look at Tau. Of course, the Tau community is up in arms right now because the guys at Tau said, we're not going to pursue tier 1 sex listings. Like, we're not going to work on the liquidity for the project. People are like, well, dude, this fucking project has meme coin grade liquidity, versus its market cap. It would really be wise, just for the growth of the project in general and for the investors and the holders, to have this, other places. And Tau is actually a really interesting, awesome project. But if you look at it too, we're talking about something that's absolutely vertical. Render, absolutely vertical. Can these things continue to go up? Of course, and I have no doubt, they probably will. These outperformers continue to be outperformers, right? But at a certain point in time, like, that level of upside that fast gets punished. and it's just kind of this cascading effect to where, people are addicted to seeing the number going up. People are addicted to making the money. But when they see that that isn't the case anymore, some people start moving on. They get bored, their attention goes elsewhere, which causes the number to go down, which causes the more attention to go elsewhere. People start saying, I'm up fucking 10x on this. I'm not selling. This thing could go down 50% and I don't care, right? It goes down 30% the next day, and they see that number. They see they have less money than they had, and they're like, maybe I should like think about getting the fuck out of this, And when Paulie said on Twitter, that people who under rotate will be punished, I really think that that's kind of like the core of what he was speaking to. People that don't realize how good they have it, how well they performed, and don't say, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to find some things that aren't, up so much. I'm going to find some new hot ideas and stuff and explore those. Those are the people that aren't going to do really well. So the second way a Bitcoin dominance melt up can happen is on a Bitcoin dump. I'm still incredibly bullish Bitcoin. And we've stalled out at all-time highs. This is not what I think. This is not the base case I think is going to happen. But I have cash, once again, 25% for possibilities of what's next. Bitcoin, dumps to 55K or something like that from here. Call it seasonality, call it whatever. People always say sell in May and walk away, right? May's still a month away. Maybe we have time. But if that were to occur, your altcoins are going to dump much harder than Bitcoin, which causes a Bitcoin dominance melt up. Now, here's the silver lining to all this. After this Bitcoin dominance melt up, you have what is truly alt season. We have not had alt season yet. Alt season is a sector-wide melt up to where up until this point, I think smart people that have allocated well into the right categories and things that have made attention, gotten this attention, have made money. Some more than others, but this is where the majority of the money has been made. In an alt season, it's when everyone, regardless of where you're allocated, makes money. Litecoin goes up, Ethereum Classic goes up, Dogecoin goes up, those kinds of things. And I think that's just around the corner. So we'll see what happens. For me, it doesn't matter. I'm prepared for either scenario because the core positions that I'm in right now, the things I've rotated to are things that are early on in their cycle. The things that are up the most dump the most, of course, right? What goes up must come down. But if I'm in things that are still early phase in their cycle, I think there's a higher probability that the dips will be more short-lived. They'll be less aggressive. Of course, unless the chart structure is totally destroyed, right? Which anything is possible. But it just puts me in a position to where my downside risk isn't as aggressive as you holding something that's up 50x in the last 3 months. There's a lot of people there that can start questioning, do I need to sell this? Whereas, with something like Cartesi that I'm in, which is up, I think at one point it was up maybe 4x and now is up maybe 2 to 3x. People haven't made this life-changing money yet. The chart still looks good. We still have this conviction that, hey, at some point, this is going to be a hockey stick vertical. So I'm going to continue to hold and I will sell. Like, look at the Dusk chart. Dusk is up insane in like a week or two. Cartesi, when it gets to that moment, it's up insane in a week or two. I'll start saying, you know what, I'm going to start bleeding this bag pretty hard, because I need to start looking for the next thing that is going to have that vertical moment that I can get in. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Somebody says change the name from Shitcoin Church to Buttcoin Church.
So Rahul's obviously on fire in chat. Obviously has a thing against. Yeah, he has a thing against Bitcoin dominance. I mean, I've got banned by Mr. Ben Khan because I always laugh at him because there's always obviously outliers, and you always can make money even when dominance is going up. But here we're talking about a general trend, and it's kind of like you got to be aware of what's going on before you can make the right moves. And that's what this discussion is about. So Raul, if you're not paying attention, clearly you're the school kid at the back of the class. You're not going to do so well in the exam.
Get this man at dunce camp. Look, yeah. I'm the furthest thing from a Bitcoin maximalist. Maybe you could even be shocked to learn that I hold 0 Bitcoin. And it's been a long time since I have held Bitcoin. Of course, Bitcoin has been the strongest asset, not individually, as like Jedi said, there's been outliers, right? But for the majority of people, if you had just held Bitcoin, it's possible that you would have outperformed anything you've been doing, including any kind of compounding rotation strategy. So there's nothing wrong, with having this Bitcoin allocation or being a Bitcoin maximalist. I like to look at Bitcoin because Bitcoin is a good way of thinking about the context of the market itself. When the entire market is essentially an echo of what Bitcoin's doing in some regard, and if Bitcoin was dumping aggressively, I can promise you that we wouldn't be having a meme coin mania on Sol. Because it would be dragging Sol down. All these meme coins are paired versus Sol, so they would be going down as well. That's how AMM works. I just like to look at Bitcoin and think about Bitcoin and what Bitcoin's going to do in the context of what I'm going to be able to do in the altcoin market. If I'm forecasting that over the next 3 months, like Bitcoin is going to continue, ranging at all-time highs, then there's a very good chance that, some shenanigans will continue to ensue in the altcoin market, so that can allow me to have strong conviction in altcoin positions, continue to be balls deep, continue to rotate, continue to extract as much as I can from the market. But, it's that's really the only thing I think in regards to Bitcoin. Of course, Ethereum's, becoming a really interesting play here because, Ethereum versus Bitcoin is a really, while Bitcoin is a great indication of the context of the overall market, which is the context is bullish, right? When you look at ETH Bitcoin is a great indicator for the context of the alt market. And ETH Bitcoin has been getting body bagged. People are saying that, Ethereum is the Cosmos of this cycle. When I think that they couldn't be more wrong. Of course, Ethereum has its challenges, but you need to understand as well, Ethereum is boomer money, and you look at guys that want to allocate and to a high beta Bitcoin and they want to have exposure to this market. The things that big money is going to come in and look at are going to be like Bitcoin, Ether, maybe some Solana, some things like that. So, I think it's really stupid to write Ethereum off. Big money isn't going to come in and say, I'm really excited about Atom. I need to get balls deep in Cosmos. Or, even at this point, something like Polkadot, okay, like what's going on over there? Like nobody even fucking knows. Like I don't know anything about that. I don't care anything about that. It's kind of like Cardano almost. Not to write off Cardano entirely. Obviously, they've got their own cult. I'm sure you guys saw that We're Cardano Girls video on Twitter a couple of days ago. I thought it was pretty funny. But so Johnny's got the ETH Bitcoin chart open, right here. What I really kind of anticipate is this final kind of capitulation type candle on ETH Bitcoin. And that moment, where people are celebrating the death of Ethereum, will act as the catalyst for a spring to the upside. We'll see what happens, though. Somebody in the audience is saying, Messi, how do you do with risk management in terms of not putting on enough risk and shaking bear PTSD? Brennan, I think the best way that I try to think about that is like, you just kind of have to stop worrying about it and get your dick wet. Like the only way to undo bear PTSD is to take a chance and make a little money. And that tends to correct that issue pretty quickly. When it's very difficult to believe that you can be the guy to make money, without sticking your neck out and actually making a little bit of money. And, I dealt with this too, because, I thought that I was like going to be fully retired and not come back. In 2023, I did really well at the beginning of the year, and I just said, I'm like, fuck this. Like, I've got some money. I'm going to stuff it in this perp exchange and optimism and just fucking walk away. Like, I don't even give a shit what happens next. And that actually didn't go well at all. It was Pika. I just almost stuffed all the money I had on chain, aside from my core Aura position, which I've had for like a year and a half now. But I almost stuffed all the money I've had on chain, or I had on chain, like my play money, into this Pika presale. It was like went down like 90%. So it was kind of in my head. I was having a PTSD moment, even though, for me, it wasn't money that changed my life, but it was money that, like, this was my on-chain money. Like, this is who I am. This is what I do. And seeing that go down that much, I was like, fuck, like, am I ever going to make money again? Like, if I get the fuck out of this somehow and get into something else, am I going to be able to be successful? At a certain point, you just have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, take a fucking chance, dude. When you take that chance and you start seeing the fruits of your labor, and I don't just say like, just take go gamble it on a meme coin or whatever, but you really need to get involved here. You need to do your study. Like, these blockmakes provide you, really good research tools and materials. Like, you need to be reading that kind of stuff. You need to really get in tune with the industry. You need to understand what's going on here. And you need to understand the attention economy here too. You need to understand what's hot. When I say what's hot, we talk about narrative baskets. RWA is hot. Maybe you need to go do some research and figure out what the next big rotation in the RWA sector is, and think about what's going to be fire. AI is still hot. Obviously, most of the AI plays that have really been going off have been the vapor. I'm whatever, like, nothing's changed, right? But once again, you really just kind of have to go dive in the pool. You're not going to learn how to swim watching other people swim. You have to get in there and try it for yourself.
Important question to ask from I think all perspectives. I mean, it's all fine and well that you've got what seems like a really solid strategy, from cash to allocation around bottomed out charts. Great. But the thing is, though, that there's a lot of bottomed out charts in the market at the moment. There's probably hundreds, if not thousands.
Yeah.
What is your kind of like, how do you approach it from a thesis perspective? Are you looking for anything in particular, or is it just, well, I want to see a chart? What is underlying that kind of drives you to make a decision to buy?
I think it always starts with the chart, because a beautiful chart like contains a lot more information than meets the eye. A beautiful chart contains shards of the story, behind a project. So first, I want to make sure that, if I'm going to buy, like you said, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of bottomed out charts around here in the market. A lot of these things are going to pump big multiples. Some of them are. So how do you start thinking about, which ones in particular you're going to locate to? First, chart. You want to see the volume confirmation on the chart, because, there's a lot of bottom out charts. And I actually made a tweet a couple of days ago, or maybe it was yesterday. Crypto, you never know. But it was something along the lines of like, hey, look at this Cartesi chart. I want more charts like this, and I'm happy and I'm patient enough to buy these charts and to sit on them until they have that vertical moment like Dusk is having now.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with a chart, and then you have to go figure out what the story is here. And I wouldn't even be considering charts that aren't in hot narrative buckets, because these narrative buckets dictate where the attention is and where the attention is going to go. Narrative buckets deepen AI, RWA, modularity. And I also think that there is kind of a restaking ETH beta bucket as well that's pretty interesting, which I love, because it kind of brings me back to these member berries, like about DeFi. I love DeFi. I'd love to have more DeFi in my portfolio. but it's just not like this hot sector. Nobody really gives a shit about DeFi, of course, for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons I always love DeFi so much is because, in my opinion, DeFi is one of the easiest trades in crypto, for two reasons. One, you do have these underlying metrics, such as revenue and things like that DeFi is really closely tied with. But DeFi goes up alongside growth. So if you can identify growth sectors in DeFi, I mean, just look at Pendle, right? You say DeFi is dead when Pendle has been one of the top performers out of any asset in crypto over the past months. It's blown almost everything out of the water. And that's some hardcore DeFi shit, like trading future yield. Like, come on. Like, I didn't see that coming. But I think outliers like that show that the DeFi trade is very much alive. You just have to be really savvy about it. When I talk about, these narrative baskets, if you're buying something wild, totally outside this narrative, and the vast majority of you listening to this probably are in my shoes right now, or maybe not exactly. I understand there's still some degree of attention from me, my voice, and maybe people watching my wallets and things like that. But I don't have 200,000 followers, right? I don't have a built-in marketing engine, and it's very likely that people listening here don't either. So when you start thinking about where to allocate, especially to things that aren't memes, right? You want to invest in fundamentals, and you want to invest in the tech. I just like the tech. I truly do. Like, it's very interesting to me. I love reading about it. I love seeing the industry advance. The industry's been a part of my life for over 10 years now. It's always cool seeing the new things that people do, using blockchain technology, new Ponzi's they make, or even at this point in time, like, people are kind of solving real world shit. And like, there some really interesting shit is happening. Okay. But if you don't allocate to places that you believe will get shilled at some point, or have a high probability of getting shilled and, getting this attention in, then it's very likely you're just going to be miserable just holding something forever. And it doesn't get this attention. The chart doesn't continue to be constructive. So that's what I try to think of, when I buy new positions, what is going to get shilled? What is going to get attention? And also, why is it going to get this attention? What's the market cap? I love, like, my sweet spot, especially for, trying to bang out, 3x, 4x, 5x, and have these compound and rotating plays. You buy something between 100 million and 300 million cap, it's likely that there's going to be enough liquidity to punt reasonable size into it. And it's also likely that, it doesn't take much money to move these things a few X's. It just doesn't, relative to the amount of money, of course, it would take to move, a multi-billion-dollar cap project a few X's. So I think that's my sweet spot, because I think some things like this, these mid caps, if you will, are just in higher probability zones of doing what I'm trying to do. At least, of course, there's people that are, punting, are working with $20-30 million portfolios that have to think about this totally differently, that may only have access. You really have two options. You can trade the majors, or you can get in things like Filecoin or these multi-billion-dollar cap projects that look really nice. That's kind of your only option. Or you could be a shitcoin. You could be like DWF Labs portfolio. If any of you guys have ever looked at that, they have more exposure to these mid caps than anyone I've seen in the market. They've got like $80 million in these mid caps, and they're in just hundreds of them. Right. That's one way to do it. To me, it's a pretty stressful way to do it. By having 5 or 6 bags, you can really stay on top of kind of what you're doing. It just kind of allows you to, be more focused. I'm trying to do this cycle no stress. I don't want to be stressed out about this cycle. I want to enjoy the cycle. I want to take what I've learned, from last cycle, I'm still learning after being here 10 years. I want to continue to build on that, and I want to continue to do better. So I think that's really how I think about it. And of course, there's this whole and I still like doing a little bit of this gym type stuff. The gyms are hard mode, right? But that's where you could really make a fortune. And I bought a couple gyms. They're lower caps. I don't want to talk about them on stream. But if you know my wallet and stuff, you can see them in there. But gyms are fun, and gyms really are just the embodiment of, what I think the easiest route to making it for everyone probably is. And that is, you find something, under $10 million market cap that you really believe in, you all in, you be a great community member, you help build a community. And that's the easy mode. You could, once again, being in the, in the trenches in making the sausage, that's hard mode. That's where all the adrenaline is. That's where the fast money is, right? That's also where, for every person you've seen post that they turn $700 into $20 million, there's thousands of people that lost everything or drawn down 90%. They never admit it because it seems like everybody's making this super easy, super fast money, but you're navigating a minefield in there, and it's very easy to just get your leg blown off. When you find something, some of my biggest wins have been exactly what I just said. I was almost all in on Decred in 2016. And I believed in it. I ended up helping manage the community. And I'm proud of that because I worked for my bag. And my bag ended up, without that win and being able to compound on that success, wouldn't be where I am today. That was really early phase type stuff for me. The same applies for, I was in Nexus Earth back in the day. I really believed in it. At one point it was CoinShield, for any of the really, really OG people listening. I really believe in that. I ended up doing really well in that. Ren, of course, very sad story with that now, because it's, what the fuck is going on with that project? It's dead. Yeah. But, Ren was my come up before DeFi Summer. Ren gave me that early opportunity to say, hey, you've now to some extent unwrecked yourself from the bear market with Ren. And now you have this money to compound and to run with. RSR was another one. I think that's a lot easier than playing in the trenches. And essentially, you're just playing roulette. You're hoping you win. You're betting on all these different things. And of course, there's different strategies and stuff for that too. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because even though it's been, I think I've definitely had less exposure to kind of like the true kind of like stormy sea of being in a very small boat in some very big waves. I think I learned really quickly, and it's because of that fast money and because of getting tossed around way too many times in terms of what I was comfortable with. And in many ways, because we're very fortunate that our business is this, so we get to kind of like participate in quite a unique way. Sure, we do still get involved on kind of like the ground level and in the weeds because it's important that we do. But I'm also approaching it from, even though I do care about the results, I'm not actually motivated by them, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like I want to win, but I want to win based on all these ideas that you've kind of like presented in such an eloquent way. It's like, okay, if I try this, what will the result be? It's kind of like that game of poker. Poker's actually a game of skill that's derived out of making the right decisions most of the time. And that's the way that I view this market, is that when I buy something or when I'm questioning something, it's always about, is this the right decision? It's not, oh, I'm going to make $1 million or I'm going to make $100,000. Or as soon as you start thinking like that, that's when you're effectively speeding at 180 miles an hour and your wheels are coming off in real time.
Yes.
As soon as you start thinking, I'm going to make X amount of money on this thing, you are fucked. It's game over. And it happens every single time. You're like in a position, you've opened a long, you've quite quite a big position and you're cooking, dude. You like about to hit six figures, you think you are God on this planet, and then you start thinking about, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then 20
It's
minutes
over.
later, it's over, dude.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a lesson, and I think we need to like be aware of those lessons. It's what I said on Twitter yesterday. It's like we never hear about, influencers and even the big accounts talk about what they've been going through when they get wrecked, because I think there's more lessons in that process than there is around kind of like the planning and the research. Obviously that's important, but then there's also like, how do you conduct yourself when you're on tilt and you want to fucking make that money back, and then you start doing stupid shit? That's when you lose the most money, not actually when you're in this mode where you're trying to make the right decisions.
Yep.
And we don't talk about that enough. And more importantly, we don't actually unpack it so that we don't go back there and do it all over again, because that's what we do all the time. We land up losing our shit, lizard brain, stupid decisions, and before you know it, you're like 20% down on your portfolio, and you're like, what just happened?
I mean, dude, after DeFi summer, I mean, I drew down, I think 80%, on my entire like net worth. I think that kind of thing happening to people, and I know most people listening to this, probably had at least one drawdown like that. I mean, shit, I've drawn down to 80% like 5-6 times now. You have to have those experiences, and you have to have those bad moments, because it's one of the only ways to kind of reinforce good risk management, and good profit taking. I think there's like a big issue with people, once again, this fast money mentality. And like you said, having these money directed goals is really poisonous, because at the end of the day, you're really only trading against, yourself, and you want to be the best version of yourself. Right. So it's these people that start saying, and they don't realize, because they're in this dopamine, fueled moment. I mean, you don't realize that what you've done is incredible. And you need to shift your thinking from, instead of, hey, I've got $1 million now and I am going to have $10 million in 5 months, to, I've got $1 million now. I need to figure out how to keep this $1 million and continue to play the game as well as I can.
Yeah.
That's the kind of mentality that will take you from 1 to 10, rather than just, when you start thinking about that money goal, it does make you make more impulsive decisions. You're more aggressive about it, because everybody knows. I think it was Zavi that said this a long time ago. He's in the dojo with Korean Jew, and I really like this analogy. What we're doing right now is akin to robbing a bank. You come into the bank and you're get the fuck on the ground. Like, you're taking all the money, you're stuffing your bags. There's infinite money in the bank. Okay. And you can take as much as you want. But the problem is, the second you rob the bank, that silent alarm trips and the police are on the way. So you're faced with this situation to like, okay, the reward here, is I can legitimately take as much fucking money as I want from this bank, but I need to get out of the bank, and, I need to get the fuck out of here before the cops show up, because if the cops show up, I'm going to have nothing. And I thought that was just a really good analogy for, these crypto hype cycles, just because like it's exactly what's going on here. At some point the music's going to stop, and if you don't have a chair, you're going to be the guy that draws down, 80%. That is going to happen to you. You don't think it'll happen now, but it will happen to you. And I think everyone needs to get more addicted to hitting that red button. Selling is something that's so difficult to do. And I've always said this, because it's really, really difficult to sell those dreams. You entered the bag because you have these visions of being in a better position, and you're up 3x, and there's always that question, 4x, 5x, 10x, there's always that question in the back of your mind. What if I sell this and this is the one, or whatever? Get addicted to the red button, because, if that is your mentality, and you are the wave rider and you're destined to ride something 100x, that's not how I play it. I don't leave these moon bags and shit. And that's not what I do, and you can do that, and anyone else can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a good strategy. I just don't do it. The problem though is, and the incorrect way to think about this is that if you're up 5, 10, 20x, you fucking take 30% out of that bag. And if it is the chosen bag, even if you take 50% out after that much upside, if you're the chosen one and it is your destiny to be an 8-figure millionaire off of this position you're in, like you believe, it's still going to happen for you if you take 50% out. If this thing's going to go at another 100x, it's still going to happen for you. But the probability of it going, another 100x or whatever is so fucking low. You every single time almost, 999 out of 1,000 times, if not even more than that, you're going to be better off going out and hitting that red button and paying yourself some. So worst case scenario, you at least have something to show for it at the end of the day. People in chat are saying that, you're muted, Jedi. People in chat are saying that Sam got 25 years.
25 years.
No.
I'm not surprised. And he probably will land up getting parole, probably after 5, if not sooner.
I think he'll get out soon, way sooner than that. But I think that they made a statement, that if you...
you fiddle with the books, you're going to get your ass handed to you. It's really that simple.
He also embarrassed a lot of politicians as well, a lot of powerful people.
Absolutely. So I reckon he'll be out within 5 years, personally. That's what I think. That Meatfish is just asking. I want to just share a story that happened a couple of months ago, where we had something that went vertical. I got in early, and there was this discussion that happened in Telegram, and it came down to, should we hold for longer or should we sell? And you were like, dude, you're up 20x. What are you waiting? What do you want? What is your expectation around this thing? And there were two very good arguments here. The one argument was, from another party was, I've got size in this thing, and another 2x for me here is essentially like life-changing money. But I've made my money and I'm sitting pretty, but I really want to see another 2x. And you were like, bro, you've made proper money. You're on 7 figures. What are you looking for? What is the upside risk versus the downside risk? And people underestimate the importance of downside risk because it's easy to look at the possibility as opposed to the reality. And the reality in that situation landed up playing out exactly the way that you said. This thing never made another all-time high. I don't think it probably will only make an all-time high, in my opinion, towards the end of the cycle, irrespective of whether people are unloading $1 million clips in it at any random time. There's just far too much desirability to go and play elsewhere with better returns than, something that's sitting at 15K and trying to get it up to 100K. It's just, and you called it, dude. And it was all about, from the last cycle you said, so you want another 2x, but you've done a 20x. Does that really make sense? No, it makes no sense, dude. Get your money out. There's plenty of opportunity. Go and place 100 bets and lose however much you're going to lose, but there will be one that will give you another 20x. And that's what it's all about.
I think that, and this is another reason why I like buying these great bottomed out setups, and great charts. I think that some of the easiest money is that initial repricing from this is a wrecked bear market looking chart to this chart is now a bullish chart. It's early phase bullish, but it's now a bullish chart. I think that those are some of the easiest multiples you can get in crypto, because it doesn't take a lot of money to kind of get it out of that bunk, especially if there's a great story behind the project. It's in a great narrative basket. So even things like, let's say TIA, and I think this is a really good thing to look at, is a great example of something that at one point was in everyone's make it portfolio. So much so that people were willing to lock their coins up for with a 1 month unstaking period. One thing that people really don't think about enough here is opportunity cost, because after the fast money hits, there's typically periods of consolidation, right? With thousands of coins out there, there's always typically something that's moving. So if you bang out these 3, 4, 5x, whatever, it's very likely, you could wait months. Even if this thing was destined to do another 5x, you could be waiting months for that next 5x. In the meantime, there's something else that's going to go 5x right now. So when you have this compounding velocity, when you're playing the markets like I do, having 5 or 6 bags on at all times, potentially even up to 10, is like an extreme for me. It's about as much as I want to go because I just can't keep up on the day-to-day with more than that. It just gives you the opportunity to have a certain degree of velocity to your compounding and to say, like with Dusk, once again, I said I have no doubt, and I strongly believe this, that Dusk is going to be $1 billion project at some point in this cycle. How long is that going to take, though? How much consolidation, how much potential downside will you have to endure during that period of consolidation, before we get the event that takes us up to that $1 billion+ level? It could be months, it could be weeks. I just don't know. But the probability is that some period of time is going to elapse between, the markup and the next markup. A really, really good example of that, and I was really early on this trade, about a bunch of Metis at $20. Metis rocketed up super hard, and it happened like that shit pumped so fucking hard. I didn't even have time to do my typical, let's shave a little bit off at 2x, let's shave a little bit off at 3x. That thing was just bam, 4x. And I was like, I'm dumping this whole fucking bag. And the thing is, after, it went up to where I sold it around 80, it went up to like 100, it went up to 115. And then it went back down to 75. And if you look at it, it's just been digging around in a range for months now. Whereas that money that I made from that trade went and deployed elsewhere that continued to be productive, for me. And Metis is another example. I love Metis. That shit is cool as fuck. First decentralized L2, rev share on the decentralized sequencer tech. Like, that's some really good technology, okay? But at the same time, like, I could be this Metis bull, and I could, look this gift horse in the mouth, right, and say, I've made really good money in this, and this thing is going to $1 billion+ cap, which it is. But in that period of time that I was waiting for that to happen, after the fast money hit, there's a lot of opportunity cost to that. And I think people kind of get stuck, in the community member mode, waiting for that opportunities. Now there are like outliers to this, of course, where I don't 100% play to this exact playbook. I don't like subscribe to it. An example of that for me has been the Aleph trade, and I talked about that on Hero Labs in January. Had a really good entry on Aleph. Aleph is deep end, it's AI. Some interesting developments for Aleph, where Shutter Project is going to be hosting infrastructure there. Aave DAO is running infrastructure on Aleph. More people are coming. Decentralized projects need decentralized infrastructure. There's no other project out there that is a full-blown like cloud solution for crypto in a decentralized manner. Of course, Aleph does a lot of other things, but I originally had a huge bag of Aleph. I got it very cheap. I only shaved off like 20% of Aleph on a round of 4x. The thing is that covered almost my entire initial, and I this is where like advanced thinking, comes into play, because, I start looking at other, not strictly cloud solutions. For example, Akash network, you can run instances and things like that on, but it's not a full blown cloud solution with serverless compute capabilities, and things like that, and I started thinking like Aleph is still a $50 million market cap, like I just due to the market cap relative to some of the other, competition, or at least close references, like in similar-ish categories. Looking at Akash at 500, 600 million cap, maybe even higher. I'm like, there's no real reason for me yet to rotate that, because I feel very like highly convicted in this that $50 million cap is a joke, and also that I have so many other plays that I can continue to capitalize on this kind of rotation strategy. There wasn't an enormous opportunity cost for me to continue riding with that. And it also helps that I'm farming Liberty points, and getting exposure to a new project that I think is really cool. while I'm waiting. It's something that's underfarmed. It's something people aren't doing. In the meantime, the fundamentals of the network are exploding. You've got more serious partners in the crypto industry coming on board, with Aleph. You've got more compute resource nodes being deployed every day. The network is growing massively. The capabilities are growing massively. So something like that is kind of an outlier. I continue to ride, but Aleph at one point when I was buying it was around $10 million cap. It was a gem. And I think you play gems a little bit differently when you're kind of looking at strategy versus playing something that is a mid cap. A mid cap, no matter what, for me, is going to be a pure, let's capture the easy money. Let's get the fuck out while it consolidates. Maybe get back in if it dips enough to some degree. Like Cortese, I was able to shave off like 30% of that position. And I bought that percent that I shaved off a few days back when it dumped like around 28 cents. Just because I still have really strong conviction in the project, and I'm ready for that next leg up, and I think it's ready at some point soon. But typically it's you just have to like kind of have a means of playing everything. And in the gyms I'm in, like I'm in a project that's like $3 million market cap. Like I'm not trying to fucking sell this project at a 2x or 3x or shave anything off. Like these are hero or zero type situations. Like this one project, these little things have an opportunity to outperform every single other thing in your portfolio if you've done really well and you pick the right ones. You have to give those time to grow, to play out, and to become what you believe they could have been in the first place. Just a lot of different way of thinking about that. In my opinion, like you don't want to be shaving hard, at least really low cap things. Things all the time go from $3, $4, $5 million cap to $100 million cap. Like it's not even in these market conditions, it's not unreasonable to expect that if you played your cards well. So just kind of like
we are seeing that at the moment, kind of like because we've had an opportunity to almost get a fresh start. This is the interesting thing about rotations, right? I think Solana kind of like almost like hid the possibilities that might exist because there's so much going on with, it's just been insane. And then all of a sudden now the rotation has gone into base. And I really like what's happening on base because it's giving people that opportunity to get in at like 1,800,000 and then to watch something go. Like BPS, probably the most retarded thing on base at the moment, and it's kind of like Normelio, the same thing. And it's like, these are coins that capture the imagination. They do all of the above and they tick all the boxes, regardless of what it is that you're looking for in the space. And you're right. It's like, those are the ones that you watch go from 1 million when you enter, if you're lucky, and you watch them and they go. And if you just stick around for long enough, you'll see it go to 200 mil. Bowden's done that. It's now 265 million, like
it's crazy.
It's insane, dude. And it's like, who would have thought, well, that's the point about bull markets and what people don't realize yet. And someone asked a question earlier on is like, how to overcome this bear market PTSD. And it's still very prevalent. You can see it in charts, you can see it in the price action. People are too ready to exit. It's just the way it is. And there's no, like, we can, I grumble about it, but that's just the nature of the beast, right? We need to go through, we've got to go through, like people need to get some wins under the belt. And then it's like, okay, cool, I can actually chill now. And I'm looking forward to that because and I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. People are like, yo, we're coming to the end of the cycle. Guys, how many parabolic charts have you seen that have gone straight up and have blown their tops off? Maybe 2 or 3, if you're lucky.
Not yet.
Not yet. We've still got time. There's still things that are going to unfold. And next question. It's all fine and well that we've identified AI on the one hand, memes on the other. We could argue about GameFi. Because I know that there is a little bit of a sticky point around GameFi. I personally believe that it might be a gateway to, the masses. I don't know. With Fink and the way that he's pumping his bags, he probably is now. But the thing is now, where do we look? What is the horizon show for you and kind of like navigating the space? 6 months from now, do you still rely on these bags that you've got now to grow? or are you looking for new opportunities, and where are those opportunities going to lie for you?
I think you always need to stay on your toes. For me, at all times, like my deck screener watch list is like 50 coins long, because once again, you're not going to buy bottoms and sell tops, but I do want to buy cheap and I want to sell expensive,
Yeah.
and by having this big watch list, it's a way for me to always be mindful of my next move, because once again, opportunity costs. I have this, 5-6 different bags, and I have a bag go up 2-3x. That's just given me an opportunity to expose to something else that may be cheap. Maybe it's having a down day. Maybe it just hasn't gotten the attention yet. It's something that I really am down with, and I'd like to add it to kind of the rotational queue. Like you always need to know if one of your rotations bangs and it hits, like Dusk for me, Cortezi for me at one point. Everything I've had at one point, the Metis, I always knew exactly where that money was going to go next. And I immediately moved and deployed. I think you touched on, again, like the PTSD, getting rid of the PTSD. I didn't even lose any money per se in the last bear market. But I still had PTSD just from watching it unfold and seeing the ruin of the bear market. And I thought to myself that, like, because I didn't lose any money, like that wasn't going to be the case. And, because it didn't really personally affect me, but it really affected me on like a deep, like psychological level, just seeing it unfold and seeing it happen. And look, once again, the best way to get rid of the PTSD is to make a lot of money, but you don't have to full pour it in, and just expose yourself immediately. Because I think probably one of the worst things you can do for PTSD is get in the wrong thing, get at the wrong time, etc., and be wrong. Because you're just so fucked after that. You're just like, man, I'm a freaking idiot. I'm never gonna make any money. It just makes it worse, because you just amplify those feelings. And you've convinced yourself, that you were right, and you should have just continued to stay out. You should have continued to not playing and not being in your flow state. So if you do have this bear market PTSD, maybe you have a $10,000 portfolio, 50,000, whatever level you're at. Maybe I don't think the amount of money you make is important. The thing you need to prove to yourself is that you can make some money. So maybe you take 5% of your portfolio, and you're not trying to make money yet, right? You're trying to fix your head. So if you take a small percent of your portfolio and say, I'm going to try to make just a little bit of money here, just to prove to myself that it's possible. I think that's a really good and low risk way to treat yourself, to give yourself the medicine you need.
Yeah, a question that was asked, and you haven't directly answered the question just in terms of what you're specifically looking at now. I don't know whether you still haven't decided, or whether it's kind of like whether you're unsure as to where the next kind of like rotation is going to go. I mean, what are your thoughts around kind of like specific rotations at the moment?
I'm just kind of unsure. That's one of the reasons I have cash, because in the obvious sectors, one of the really obvious sectors was, was this RWA thing. I thought it was inevitable, especially because Larry Fink, I mean, his recent appearance on TV really kicked things off, but it's not the first time he's said all this shit on the news, right?
Yeah.
I really felt that this was inevitable, and that whole sector is pretty pumped now. You see Everside going crazy, Dusk going crazy, Ando going crazy. There's another one, I forget what it's called, but there's a lot of things in that sector that are just totally vertical now. So you start thinking about the sector as a whole, and you're like, the AI sector has a lot of grifts, right? Because it's really easy to grift AI, really, really easy to grift AI. And so you saw a lot of power in that sector. Of course, with Tao leading the charge, but then you things like Fetch AI running to billions-dollar market cap. But the biggest outperformers in that sector was all the vapor that came, as a byproduct of attention in that sector. It's really, really like incredibly more difficult to kind of have this continuation in RWA and think about other plays in the sector to rotate to, because RWA does require so much planning, setting up, legal hurdles, licensing. It's a really serious sector. So with AI, it's not the case at all, right? You and your buddy in college, go spit up a new AI project, and hey, this project generates pictures of Pepe the Frog stroking his dick, and we're going to go to $50 million market cap, like $100 million market cap. It's just like a totally different ballgame. It's just harder to kind of fake it and to grift in the RWA sector. I do think the modularity sector, alt VM sector, has a lot of room to grow. You see, when I say alt VM, I mean things that aren't EVM. You see, things upcoming like Eclipse, SVM as an Ethereum L2, which is really interesting. You see Fuel VM. There's various different like move VMs that are coming. Cartesi is that old VM play with actual Linux as a VM. I think that's an underappreciated sector, and I think at some point, it's very likely to get attention.
We've got Intense as well.
Intense.
I mean,
Intense is just DeFi. It's a cool sector and cool technology. Obviously, I've got exposure there. And I plan on holding that and letting it grow and seeing what happens. I think it'll do pretty well. And there's a lot of room for growth. The perp sector on chain has a lot of room for growth. It's a brutal sector though, because one of the biggest issues with DeFi is that you being obsoleted is possibly always around the corner. You saw this with GMX. If you asked anybody 2 years ago if they thought anybody would dethrone GMX as the undisputed king in the sector, they tell you you're fucking crazy. But now, we've got Avo, we've got Hyperliquid, IntentX. Hopefully one day they're not doing the numbers to deserve to be mentioned among giants yet, but I really do hope and pray that they will. And I have the belief that they will, because it's a great technology and it's a great product, right? But you got Hyperliquid and Avo, just doing enormous levels of volume. Even Cointa, synthetics, perps, doing enormous levels of volume, and generating a lot of fees, of course, and stuff like that. Like GMX just didn't move fast enough. They didn't innovate fast enough. They didn't iterate fast enough. And it's still a wonderful product, and obviously a lot of people still use it. They still print a lot of fees. But you look at the chart, and the chart is a great reflection of them being out innovated and outpaced. That's one of the scariest things about anything kind of in the DeFi sector. Interesting areas on like DeFi, I guess in general, I think are going to spawn out of LRTs, and this isn't purely my thesis. I've been talking to a couple of people about this. But if you look back at Spell in 21. Why did Spell as a DeFi project go so fucking crazy? Well, one, of course, you got Danny, who is just infinite charisma, likable cult leader type energy, right? And relentless, brutal innovation as well. But Spell provided a service that nothing else did. And Spell. Epic. Spell enabled people to loop and put massive leverage on their positions, and there's a huge demand for that in the bull market. So I think in terms of DeFi, once again, it's the easiest trade in the world if you can identify what is going to grow, because the price goes up enormously alongside the underlying growth. Okay, it's hard in the sense that what the fuck is going to grow, right? How do you find that out? But there's always this huge demand for leverage in crypto. And you see things that enable this kind of leverage are things like Curve USD, which has been growing and I think is going to continue to grow massively. Other things that enable people to loop leverage their LRTs, to really farm the shit out of these new protocols, and the yield, I think, stand to grow a lot. I don't know 100% when my move is going to be there yet. I'm looking at a couple of things. Prisma is one of those things. Obviously, not a great day to talk about Prisma, right? Because they were hacked. But in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't a lot of money. I do not have a bag yet. I don't plan on getting a bag yet. If you look at almost any DeFi thing in existence, Aave, Curve, Convex, Balancer, doesn't matter, synthetics, doesn't matter how blue chip they are, they almost always draw down, from peak to trough around 95%. So if I were to dip my toes in something like Prisma at all, and chase this kind of levered, spell-like theory, I'd really want to get it closer to that 95% mark. Highly inflationary DeFi protocols are a scary beast. And if you want to play in that game at all, you really want to make sure you get the best entry. Because you can look at, and this is something that's crazy to even think about, right? You can look at something down 90%, okay? And you can say, I think I'm going to buy here because this is a really, really cheap price and this is a great discount. But the correct way to think about this, when you're thinking about this from a risk standpoint, is just that, like, if this goes down to a total of 95% and I bought it when it was negative 90%, I've just lost half of my money, which is crazy. It's absolutely crazy to think about, but that's what it is. So if I were to kind of dip my toes into something like that, I would be very hesitant to do so. And the only reason for doing so would be, when this kind of like 95% drawdown and extreme divergence between price and fundamentals. If you look at Convex right now, Convex, I think, might be a decent way to get exposure to this LRT, LSD narrative. Aura as well, just because as these new things emerge, they're really going to need to rent liquidity for LRTs and LSDs. And Aura is a great place to do that, rent liquidity. Balancer V3 Catalyst coming out. It's a unique opportunity to be in a DeFi area or a DeFi sector that's going to experience growth. Now, it's not for everyone, and I do think that there's more glorious and more attractive plays out there, right? But once again, my heart is with DeFi. I love DeFi. I love thinking about how these things work and the mechanics and all these things. So, I do like thinking about them and looking at them. And once again, DeFi has the potential, on an outlier basis, to outperform everything else massively when you see these massive growth stories happening. For example, Spell in 2021 or Pendle now. It just happens. So don't totally write off DeFi. Is it a good idea for you to say, Aave looks pretty good, I think I'm gonna get an Aave bag? Probably not. I definitely think you're gonna underperform, even if you do make money, and you may even underperform significantly because of the not just lack of attention in DeFi, but also the almost like aversion to DeFi. People don't just there's not just like this lack of attention on DeFi. There's this like ick about DeFi to where people are forcing themselves to not look at it. And there's a good reason for that. And I think, just to be very clear here, I think that that's like the correct way to think about it. You need to have an ick about it, but don't write it off. And if you do decide to buy any kind of DeFi at all, you better have a very strong thesis about why this thing is going to grow, why the revenue is going to explode, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, a really good question that's come through, and it fortunately is, DeFi related, and it's kind of like, interoperability and, what that affords not only for DeFi, but for the entire space as a whole, in terms of being able to, provision liquidity wherever you want to. And at the end of the day, that's probably the single most important kind of ingredient. If you've got liquidity, then all of the above lands up falling into place. And I think, in terms of the question, any thoughts on interoperability? I know that last cycle you weren't that keen on infrastructure projects, as they didn't tend to pump our bags enough. Is that generally the same kind of
I think,
thesis?
Yeah. To some extent, yes.
Do you not? But Messi, hold on a second. Do you not think that something like Layer Zero, when Brian Pellegrino and the boys pull the trigger on that airdrop, is going to be literally like an adrenaline shot into the DeFi space.
I think it will be big time. Interoperability itself, in my opinion at least, is just not that exciting. And it's because there's still, people don't realize it. And once again, it feels like, especially at this point, and I've heard this from people, I do, talk to a lot of people here. It's one of the things I enjoy the most. A lot of people that spend time to DM me and stuff, if they're being reasonable and aren't just like, hey, I've got $100,000. What should I buy? I'm like, hey, why the fuck are you asking me? Like, if you're want to message me and like talk about theory or theses or to show me your bags or whatever, like I'm always down to hear you out. And I've heard from a lot of people. So if you're feeling this way, you're totally not alone, and you shouldn't be ashamed of it. That like they feel like they fucked this cycle up. They feel like they're not going to make it, and they've blown their shot. They've blown their chance. But one of the things you really have to remember here is that in the grand scheme of things, regardless of what may happen over the next couple of months or the next 6 months, or, I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody fucking does. The context in the grand scheme of things is bullish. And it's very likely a year from now that we're all going to be in a better place. Yeah. There's still lots of chances to make it, but it's really still a PvP type cycle. And you see attention, is not, once again, we're not an alt season. Everything is not exploding, and not everyone's not getting hilariously rich. There are people that are, but not everyone yet. You don't have people yet that, Bored Ape Yacht Club and the NFT sector minted more millionaires, I think, than in anything last cycle. It was absolute mania. But because of that, you say base chain is popping off. Whereas, I see base chain with, as it stands right now is a bunch of people that have bags, shilling these bags and dumping these bags on the new money that flows in the ecosystem. I'm very, very bullish on base. And I think if you are like in the trenches and trying to make it, base is a really good place to be. But when I say it's not base cycle, all I mean is that you're early. You're actually very early, because you really haven't seen the growth that chain and that ecosystem is capable of producing. No doubt this thing is going to grow, many, many multiples of where it is now. For me, it's always being early is a great thing, right? And I think you can be early to base and you can make it pretty easy mode, right? Base to me is a sure thing. It's an obvious thing. And I think that's a pretty consensus view. But sometimes, being a consensus view doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. Sometimes it's just very obvious. I think another consensus view and something you could say along the same lines is, for the vast majority of people, if you just went all in Dogecoin right now, it's almost zero fucking risk, and you're going to have more money at some point in the next year or two, like maybe even significantly more. It's just that obvious of a thing. And the fact that it's consensus doesn't make it wrong. It's that consensus because it's so right and it's so obvious. And if you have a different perspective, you kind of are an idiot. So, I know this is kind of a long-winded way to say this, but this is why I'm not bullish on interoperability just yet, because when we have still this PvP environment and this few participants in the system, you do see the vast majority of the attention, even with a bit of activity and whisperings of base season, on Solana. That's still where the party is now. It might be after hours of the party. Most, a lot of people might have gone home. People are passed out on the couch. It's 3 a.m. You're smoking cigars with the boys on the couch. Talking about what a great night that was. But at the same time, like, that's where the party is still. Some people have left to go to base and go do this, here and there, but it's nothing compared to that. You're looking at base, and it's kind of the same thing that's happening on Solana right now, just at maybe 5% of the scale, even with people talking about it. So, when you have this little attention to the system and it's still such a PvP environment and people are still every day questioning, do I need to sell everything now because I've got this PTSD of losing 80% of my net worth, it's the top end, et cetera. you're just still really early phase in the cycle. Base is really, really going to thrive in the later phases of the cycle, when Coinbase is just shoveling endless users to on-chain activities. Of course, the court ruling yesterday really kind of reaffirmed that thesis, where the judge essentially dismissed, to my knowledge and my understanding of it, the claims against Coinbase offering these like wallet services and stuff is actually a really bullish moment for on-chain and for DeFi. So I really am extremely optimistic and extremely certain that Base is as sure of a thing as something like Dogecoin, if not more sure, in terms of how much money you'll make. But you don't have interoperability is going to really thrive when we still have so much block space in so many different places that isn't occupied. Interoperability will thrive when there is a lot of people that need to bounce between different chains because there's a lot of stuff going on in a lot of different places. And right now, you're not seeing an environment where there's a need to be bridging or exposed to multiple places. If you're really making the big money, you're probably on Sol, or you might just be on Base and Sol. So maybe you're moving a little bit, back and forth between the two, something like that. I don't think it's a defunct narrative. I just think that if it becomes a big thing, that's going to be more of a late cycle thing. And there's an opportunity cost to being right, but being too early.
So we have gone kind of like just over 90 minutes. So I want to wrap it up because I think we could chat for another 90 another 90 quite easily, and we're definitely going to get you back on. There's no option for you to say no. We speak to each other on a daily basis, so you're coming back, dude. Just by the way,
I blew you off forever, so I'm glad to be here. And
no, you didn't. I just didn't. You didn't, because I could have pushed the issue, but I also knew that it's also about timing, and you busy, and it's all good, dude. You didn't blow me off. It's fine. I think the last question, just to kind of put it all into perspective, I think, is the question that was asked earlier. Like, what are your thoughts around kind of like NFTs? I mean, I was never good at NFTs, but I see there is a role that will get played, and I'm just curious what your perspective is around that. I mean, I know we've seen the Bitcoin puppets that I love, and I really do. I regret that I never bought when Hickson, the guy that runs our newsletter, said, "Listen, Jedi, go and buy some of these things." They were like 0.01 Bitcoin at the time, and now they're at like 0.2 or 3. So I think there is a role to be played here, but I'm just curious as to what your perspective is, cross chain. What do you think?
Look, obviously, NFTs and Bitcoin is a big thing. And I think it's something that stands to grow, and I think it can grow a lot without a lot of external inflows, because once again, you've got these kind of Bitcoin purist, types that anything but Bitcoin is disgusting, right? And the fact that they have the ability to gamble and have a little bit of fun on chain, you've like immediately unlocked the largest total addressable blockchain market in the world, and have access to all of those funds that are already there.
So much funds.
So it's an unreal amount of money, and a lot of times, or a lot of this money too, is this huge OG super old money. These guys can blow $1 million and not blink twice. So there's a lot of that kind of fuel pouring into this Bitcoin NFT movement, which makes it a lot different than the Ethereum NFT movement we saw last cycle, where there's a lot of new inflow in retail. I think it's going to be a long time, before, or even if, we see this kind of retail inflow into the Bitcoin NFT movement, just because the UX is so fucking bad, and it's so complicated. It's just terrible. And even if they do really improve it, and make it better, Bitcoin block time is 10 minutes. Like it's you can only improve it so much. At the end of the day, the experience itself is still better on an L2, or something like that. Maybe in a Bitcoin L2. Bitcoin L2s, that's another thing, because the whole core of this Bitcoin movement, of course, is doing things on chain, because Bitcoin's the best. There's no second best. There's no second best. Like it's everybody just it's fixing the security budget on Bitcoin. What Udi and Eric started with Taproot Wizards. Like, doing things on Bitcoin is cool, right? Doing things on Bitcoin L2, I think, is kind of counter to the ethos of the entire Bitcoin movement, it's not as cool. And of course, there's been a lot of Bitcoin L2s, that have been set up to kind of capitalize on Bitcoin momentum as the best, strongest coin right now, in general. And one of the interesting things about that one is kind of the whole movement, but a lot of these Bitcoin L2s are like, hey, this is an EVM secured by Bitcoin. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, that's kind of an abomination, right? Because on one hand, you've got the hardcore Bitcoiners who are like, gross, what the fuck? I'm not going to use EVM, like that disgusting, Vitalik should be in jail. I would never use his technology. Like, that's ridiculous. And then on the other hand, you've got, the more kind of open-minded crowd, the guys that have no problem using an EVM. And those types of people really don't give a shit at all that it's on Bitcoin. Like, who cares? So,
dude, you know how quickly they could lock 100 billion in TVL if they actually produce something like that can prove to work, that does deliver on what it says on the tin, because the amount of capital that there is actually ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Looking out of all the Bitcoin L2 plays, Stacks is, I think, the most interesting. Yes. And I think in that case, especially before you have this kind of course, Stacks, I think is considered to be the front runner, but it's still low TVL and low market cap relative to where it could end up. At this phase in time, if that is something you're bullish on, it's definitely just been, better to just bet on Stacks and Stacks Eco. Because Stacks is Bitcoin native. Stacks, while it is a Bitcoin L2 and it is anti to this ethos of doing things on chain, it's a Bitcoin L2 by Bitcoiners, not using EVM. It's unique. I think they're still working on the Nakamoto consensus upgrade. But, I think that's inevitable. Like, that's pretty obvious play. I think that's going to grow. There's definitely a lot of money there and a lot of money behind that. NFTs in general, like on Ethereum and stuff, I don't know if that'll ever come back because, at the end of the day, retail really loved NFTs because it was fast money. It was this gambling vehicle, and it was new. There's a narrative behind it. Whereas, this cycle, I think meme coins are more efficient gambling vehicles than NFTs. And that's something that always puzzled me about NFTs, because shitcoins are just better. They're more liquid. You can own, more people can own them, more people can participate, in the upside and the virality. So I don't know if NFTs ever really come back on Ethereum or anywhere else. Of course, you have outliers every time, like Pudgy Penguins has been an incredible outlier. I own a bunch of Schizo posters just because I like them. I'm the worst NFT investor in the world. Okay. But I like these and I think they're cool and I've had them for, forever. And I just found out yesterday that I'm getting a fucking airdrop on my Schizo posters. Like, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it's pretty neat. It's for, what's that new stablecoin protocol on Mantle? I can't remember.
Is that Kerosene?
It's the one that has shards that everybody keeps talking about.
I didn't see it.
It's the one that basically it's a huge basis trade, and they've got a very large short position on centralized exchange. Athena, somebody also hard saying it.
Oh, Athena. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But I'm getting an airdrop for that. Would you? That's pretty fucking balling. Like, I didn't expect to get anything.
Are the Schizo ones the Remilio kind of like?
The Schizo posters were an airdrop, I believe, to Rad Bros. Which are.
Yeah, I have a few of those as well. I also like them. I like that kind of like the, what is it, the Terminator style vibe with kind of like the computer generated print on them. I really
they're
like
cool. I mean,
well.
Schizo posters. I mean, they're really cool. If you haven't seen them, looking. I'm not saying you should go fucking buy one or something. Like I'm myself shocked that I'm getting like something real of value, and I think
a return.
The Pudgy Penguins, like, that was a big thesis, behind them. And one of the reasons that they have, been this outlier performer is because you look at like Primo and all the Layer Zero guys and tons of other crypto founders, even at like Nansen and places like that, they've really gotten behind the movement and they've adopted these cute penguins as their identities and stuff. And penguins are obviously here to stay, because what Luke has done. He's kind of redefined, flipped the NFT business model on its head. Of course, you've got ice packs in the sector too, and probably another outlier is the Kent Back Pandas. Which, like, I think all this stuff is stupid, but once again, you've got a good picture of an NFT founder turning the traditional NFT business model on its head. Doing real things for the people, kind of making it this exclusive club with all these perks and benefits. Which once again, I think NFTs. and Bitcoin obviously are a big thing, for the reasons we discussed, but NFTs and, on ETH or Ethereum, they're just a poor gambling vehicle, compared to meme coins, and the whole profile pick meta and stuff like that is kind of cooled off. But, there's outliers everywhere.
Yeah, I mean that's what we did as well with our NFT collection. Where you landed up getting a custom one, and that's not just the LOPs. Yeah, so that's the lifetime access research pass. So we're obviously giving people quality research. It's essentially Masari for degens. That's what we're going for. But then there's also a whole lot of other benefits, exactly the same as what the Campi pandas are doing and the Pudgies are doing, is that there are airdrops coming, there are benefits, and we plan on doing it for as long as we can, as long as we're in the space. We will be providing value.
Jedi, I didn't even kind of think about that aspect of the utility, because I know you guys work with a lot of founders really early phase and do a lot of early phase investment. So I think securing airdrops and stuff for your community is super cool.
That's what we're gonna do, dude. I mean, for us, it's like it was a nice way to get a cash injection, but that cash injection is not for us to go and have parties and do stupid shit. It's actually, let's take these funds and actually channel it into. There's a whole lot of stuff that we're gonna do, bro.
Yeah. Dude, I have no doubt. I know you guys are gonna slay.
We're on a mission here, and it's not about making money and walking away. For us, we want to build something that really transcends what the space is about. So, those NFTs for us, even though they are silly in many ways, there's a whole lot of shit that's going to go down that people are not going to see coming. So, and you have one, dude. You have a very special one.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, dude. I'm going to call it. Like I said, we could carry on forever. Thanks as always for your insights. You're a fucking awesome human being to be around and to obviously tap into your knowledge. Really appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's always just natural speaking to you guys, and any of the hero team is the same way. I love the flow. I love the show. Once again, I do appreciate you guys kind of carrying on the Shitcoin Church legacy. And for anybody, I'll give your NFTs a shout out. Once again, it's the LARP NFT. I shouted it out on my Twitter. I've known the Blockmates guys for a long time. It's value for a particular type of person, for the type of person that wants to get their dick wet, for the type of person that wants to learn more, to get deep in research, that wants to understand the industry. I didn't even know you guys were going to have all these additional perks, and so I honestly just thought it was just a passive research. So seeing the successful NFT founders in the industry, like Campi Pandas or Pudgy Penguins, or even I guess Schizopesters now. What the fuck? It's really cool to see you guys bringing that level of additional utility to your community. I think that's dope.
Yeah, for us, there's only one thing that really matters, and that is that we want to continue having fun and just being a part of this thing. I mean, I think what we're doing I think we're really lucky and really fortunate to do what we're doing, and we got to make it work, dude. And having fun and giving shit back to people is critical in that whole process.
I agree.
You can make money, you can do all that stuff, but are you having fun?
Yeah.
And that's all that matters.
I agree.
Anyways, cool. Thank you, sir. Take it easy. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, good luck, everyone. See you later.
Just like and subscribe, please, if you haven't done that already. I know we never ask you, and when we do, we're kind of awkward about it. But yeah, just fucking do it. Thank you.